Well, when all else fails, you can use government employees to promote Kamala Harris propaganda. According to an exclusive story from the Daily Wire, there is an account called Kamala's Wins. It is not a good Twitter account, but it has many, many followers, like 750,000 followers on Twitter. It is a viral source of pro-Kamala misinformation. It was launched by a Biden administration employee. According to the Daily Wire, in July, the popular Biden's Wins account rebranded as Kamala's Wins. It now boasts that it is the largest online community supporting soon-to-be President Kamala Harris. So who's running it? Apparently, a Biden-Harris administration staffer. The Biden Wins account was launched in January 2022 by Ethan Wolf, a recent college graduate who was working as deputy political director for Illinois Democrat Brad Schneider's reelection campaign. Wolf's account became a favorite of White House staffers such as Ron Klain. By September 2022, he was invited to the White House for a private briefing with the president, Vice President and Ron Klain. A month later, Wolf was back at the White House for another content creator briefing, posing for photos with top White House officials and doof Doug Emhoff. Just over a year after launching that account praising Biden, Wolf had earned himself a job in the administration. In June 2023, he was hired as a communications specialist in the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration, where he makes $94,000 a year. The timing of the event, as the Daily Wire points out, raises questions about the Biden-Harris administration's relationship with Wolf. The Harris campaign, responding to one of many viral lies that originated with his account, told PolitiFact it is not associated with Kamala's Wins. Though it seems Harris and the administration have worked closely with Wolf from the beginning of his career when he was fresh out of Ohio State University. So he's engaged in overtly political activity. He is subject to the Hatch Act. But what it looks like is that he was an ally of the administration. They gave him a cush job over there, pushing propaganda on behalf of Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris. So really strong stuff here from Team Kamala. I can't imagine why they're falling down on their face. Meanwhile, in preparation for a Donald Trump presidency, the world is getting significantly more dangerous. See, if you're China, now's your moment. It's your moment right now. Right? Maybe they wait until after the election in order to see if Kamala Harris wins. If Kamala Harris wins, they've got a little bit of time. They can play around the edges. If Donald Trump wins, they know that Trump is going to be a way harsher president on them than Joe Biden is. Maybe they go between November and January. Maybe during that lame duck period, they decide to make a move on Taiwan. They certainly are upping their aggressiveness in the Taiwan Straits. According to the Wall Street Journal, China said it concluded a day of around-the-clock drills around Taiwan, sending a record number of military aircraft, and saying for the first time it had deployed its Coast Guard to encircle the self-ruled democracy's main island. Beijing's military response came days after Taiwan's new president, Lai Ching-te, delivered a speech on October 10th in which he reaffirmed Taiwan's sovereignty and dismissed Beijing's claims to represent the island, though his message to China also called for calm. Taiwanese officials had warned that Chinese maneuvers were likely following Lai's remarks. Beijing has considered Lai, who was inaugurated in May, a staunch supporter of Taiwanese independence, a red line for leaders of China's Communist Party, which claims the island as part of its territory despite never having ruled it. On Monday morning, China's People's Liberation Army Eastern Theater Command said it had launched joint sea and air drills around Taiwan's main and outlying islands involving the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Rocket Force, effectively simulating a blockade, which is the most likely thing, right? They wouldn't try a full-scale amphibious invasion. They'd simply blockade Taiwan until TSMC, which is the microchip producer on the island, superconductor producer, decides to allow the production of sophisticated microchips for Chinese military use. That's what the blockade would be for, and then they would dare Joe Biden to try and break the blockade. Some 14 hours later, the Chinese military said it had fully tested the integrated joint operation capabilities of its troops and wrapped up the exercises. So, is it possible that they'd make a move in the last waning days of the Biden administration? It sure is. Why the hell not? Why wouldn't Iran go for broke on a nuclear program between the election and the inauguration of Donald Trump if Donald Trump wins? So they're waiting. They're waiting until after the election to see what happens, which means that allies of the United States better get ready now, because things are going to get quite dicey in the very near future in both the Far East and also in the Middle East, where it looks like Iran is readying its own nuclear breakout potential. Meanwhile, what is the Biden administration doing? They're trying to stop Israel from launching strikes against those Iranian nuclear facilities, which is insane, by the way. That is perfectly insane foreign policy. The thing you're probably not getting enough of, sleep. because you're up all night worrying about the state of the world? Well, I've got a solution for you. It's called Helix. Now, I'm not one to endorse products lightly. Helix has seriously changed how we live in my household. They've got a whole lineup of mattresses, 20 different options to be exact. You've got the Luxe for those of you who feel like you're sleeping on a cloud, the Elite for when you want to take your sleep game to the next level, and even the Helix Plus for our friends who need a little extra support. Plus, you don't need a degree in mattressology to figure out which one is right for you. You just take their sleep quiz. I took it myself. They matched me with a medium firm mattress, which is great since I get back pain if the mattress is too soft. Get this, Helix delivers your personalized sleep solution right to your door. No hassle, no fuss, just pure comfort shipped straight to you. Plus, they are so confident in their product, they give you 100 nights to try it out. If that wasn't enough, there's a 10 to 15-year warranty. Talk about standing behind your product. So, if you want to sleep as soundly as I do, head on over to helixsleep.com/Ben and take that sleep quiz. Plus, Helix is offering up to 20% off all mattress orders. Just go to helixsleep.com/Ben. That's helixsleep.com/Ben. With Helix Sleep, better sleep starts right now. If you actually want to facilitate conflict in the Middle East, wait until Iran has a nuclear weapon. Iran having a nuclear weapon, everyone knows this, is sort of the be-all and end-all of Middle Eastern conflict. If they gain a nuclear weapon, they will use that as the deterrent to Israeli action against terrorist groups. If they have a nuclear weapon, they will use that as a way of forcing Saudi Arabia into making concessions to, say, the Houthis in Yemen. A nuclear weapon changes the balance of power in the region pretty dramatically, which is why Israel has steadfastly for the last 20 years been killing every Iranian nuclear scientist it can get its hands on, and also implanting viruses like Stuxnet to completely destroy Iran's nuclear programs. Well, right now, Iran has fired 181 ballistic missiles into Israel. And Israel has not yet responded. And so the question was going to be what Israel's response would be. Now, the only appropriate response, truly, would be Israel blowing up the nuclear facilities if they could. And frankly, it would be very, very good for the United States and for the Western world if Israel did that, in the same way that it was very good in 1981 when Israel blew up the Iraqi Osirak reactor, condemned by the United States, by the way. It's why it was really good, why in the mid-2000s Israel blew up a nascent nuclear reactor in Syria. It would be very good for the Western world if Israel did that right now, with or without American help. There's a point that Pierre Poilievre has made over in Canada. He says, that would be great if Israel did that. It would push off the possibility of large-scale Middle Eastern conflict for another generation if Israel blew up the nuclear weapons facilities. So what is the Biden administration doing? Naturally, because they're conciliatory toward Iran, they're trying to ratchet down Israel's response. They're trying to tell Israel not to go particularly hard against Iran. Now listen, Israel doesn't want to go to full-scale war with Iran. Israel actually cares about its citizens. The Iranian government really does not. They shoot their citizens if they rebel in any way, shape, or form. With that said, does Israel have a large-scale interest in preventing the nuclearization of the Islamic theocracy that is Iran? Absolutely they do. And every time the Biden administration, again, tries to yank on the chain of the Israelis, all that happens is that terror increases. So there's a report 4 or 5 days ago that the Biden administration was telling the Israelis not to strike inside Beirut, which is where all of the Hezbollah top leaders are, and that Israel may have complied. And a few days later, Hezbollah then sent a drone into the middle of Israel, into a place called Binyamina, which is about, a third of the way down into Israeli territory, and hit a military base and wounded almost 70 people. Was that a coincidence? The Biden administration's policy here is just feckless beyond all recognition. But according to the Washington Post, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has told the Biden administration he's willing to strike military rather than oil or nuclear facilities in Iran, according to 2 officials familiar with the matter, suggesting a more limited counterstrike aimed at preventing a full-scale war. When Biden and Netanyahu spoke on Wednesday, their first call in more than 7 weeks, the prime minister said he was planning to target military infrastructure in Iran. The White House had no immediate comment. The Israeli Prime Minister's office said, quote, "We listen to the opinions of the United States, but we will make our final decisions based on our national interest." The retaliatory action would be calibrated to avoid the perception of political interference in the U.S. elections. So basically, Joe Biden is now calling up Israel and threatening them. You want to talk about impeachable kind of stuff? So remember that time? Do you remember this? When Donald Trump was impeached from office for calling up Ukraine, calling up Vladimir Zelensky and saying, "We might withhold your military aid unless Burisma is investigated." You remember this? You remember this? He was impeached for that. Joe Biden is currently calling up our ally, Israel, and telling them, don't strike at the people who just shot 181 missiles into your country. Don't strike too hard before the election because it might hurt my electoral prospects. And if you do, I might punish you. Please explain the difference. I'm waiting. This is where you insert the crickets or the Jeopardy music. Okay, he is basically blackmailing Israel into not doing what it needs to do to preserve its own security because it wants Kamala Harris to win or something. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, Me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.